Hi everybody, welcome to Real Management Dynamics, and today we're going to talk about how to fix a bad attitude. So let's look at some examples of someone who's displaying a bad attitude in the workplace. So this could be like the words they use. They might be like saying like things like fine or I don't care or whatever. They might use sighing sounds like they might speak in a loud voice or shout or interrupt you. Okay. They might not say anything at all. They might just completely ignore you when you're trying to talk to them. Or it could be like body language sort of displays. So they might, be crossing their arms. They might walk away from you as you're talking to them. They might like throw their arms up in the air. Okay, they may raise their eyebrows or roll their eyes. Okay, so all these things can be uh, thought of as having someone having a bad attitude. And when you think of a bad attitude, it's really important that you drill down to the behavior that they're displaying, because bad attitude is a very general word and can mean different things to different people. Okay, it's very subjective. So when you think of someone has a bad attitude, you need to drill down and describe exactly what it is about the behavior that the person is displaying, which is causing you to think that they have a bad attitude. Okay, because basically it's the behavior that is giving you the feeling and the impression that they have a bad attitude. Okay, and the reason we do this is because, based on my experience, employees don't like talking about their attitude. Okay, when you approach someone and say, "Oh, you have a bad attitude," there's almost like a knee-jerk reaction to disagree with it. Okay, they refuse to accept it, and we can't prove it. It's their word against their word against ours, and they can argue about it. And because it's just a matter of opinion, you really can't win by taking that line of argument. Okay, so you'll be frustrated if you're trying to change someone's attitude by just saying, "Oh, you have a bad attitude." Okay, we can't get at it at attitude. We can't change it. So we don't even go there. Okay, all we can see is their behavior and their actions, because attitude is inside the employee, and only they can verify what their attitude is. We can never know what it is. But what we can see is the behavior that they're displaying. Okay? And that's what we're paying for. We're paying them for their behavior at work. Okay? Very important. That's what we pay. We're paying for the behavior and their actions at work. And really, what you are concerned about is their behavior, because that's what drives the results. Okay? It's not the attitude, it's the behavior. That's what drives the results. So, also, one more thing is that if the situation was to go to court, only the behavior and action that can be observed and documented can be presented as evidence. Okay, so your HR department, they want to know the behavior. They don't want to know about the attitude. They want to know what behavior did they, what did they do, what did they say. Okay, when you go to HR and say, "Oh, such and so has such a bad attitude," okay, they will ask you, "Well, what behavior did they display?" And the same thing in the courts. That's the evidence that you present, is their behavior. And if I was to ask you, would you rather have someone with a good attitude, but they missed the deadlines, they were late, and they didn't get the work done? Or would you rather have someone with a bad attitude, but was on time, was pleasant to work with, and achieved all their objective? Okay, so essentially, it doesn't matter what attitude is, what matters is behavior in the workplace. Okay, so so yeah, we've covered this. You have an employee who hates to perform a certain, let's give you another example. You have an employee who hates to perform a certain task. She thinks someone else should do it. But regardless of this, she does it with professionalism, and her behavior and actions are exactly what is required. So then, does it matter what her attitude is when her behavior and performance is so good? No, it doesn't matter. Okay. So we need the behavior, not the feelings about the behavior. Okay. And you might think to yourself, "Oh, this person is so frustrating. They've got the attitude of entitlement. They're acting as if they're in charge." Okay. As a rule, we should avoid labels. We should avoid labels. Okay, labeling someone as someone with a bad attitude or entitled or whatever. Uh, they're just not specific enough to help us deal with the employee in question. And some questions to ask yourself, whenever a manager comes to me and says, oh, such and such has a bad attitude, these are the questions that I will ask, and these are the questions you should ask yourself. How do I know he or she has a bad attitude? Okay, focus on the words and the body language. What have I seen or heard that demonstrates a bad attitude? What did they actually say? How were they sitting? What were their facial expressions? Okay, and if you think along those categories, then you're going to be able to drill down to exactly what it is that you saw that gave you the impression of them having a bad attitude. So we translate the attitude to concrete actions, and then we're going to give them feedback on those actions. Okay. And frame of mind, obviously, as frustrating as someone with an attitude can be, you should always keep your emotions in check. Okay. And because if you go into a meeting with someone and you're already upset or angry or pissed off, or they've annoyed you, you're not going to be able to give feedback in the correct way. Okay, it's going to come across like you're upset and you're trying to get at them. So as a rule of thumb, if you cannot chuckle when you give feedback, then you're in the wrong frame of mind. And if you just keep that sentence in your mind, that if you cannot chuckle, if you cannot laugh when you're giving feedback, obviously you're not going to be in a laughing mood where you kind of jokey, you're going to laugh. But just bear in mind that you shouldn't get worked up and emotional when you're going into a meeting with them, because you're not there to react to your own hurt feelings about what they've done. You're there to correct their behavior. That's what it's about. You want to just correct their behavior that they displayed. Okay, so this is the summary, if you like. What we're going to do, we're going to give feedback about the behavior and how it comes across to you and to others. Then the behavior will stop and the attitude disappears. Okay, very, very simple formula. So let's look at some examples. So when you crossed your arms when John was talking to you, it can be perceived as disrespectful. Can you work on that? When you look away extensively when someone is talking to you, it appears that you may not be listening and can come across as disrespectful. Notice how we're giving the observed behavior, we're saying how it's coming across, and then we're asking them to change the way they're behaving. When you hit your fist against the wall, it scares people. When you point out 3 negatives and no positives, it can feel like an attack, and people's feelings get hurt. When you don't share your ideas, it shows that you don't care. When you only turn work after being reminded, it appears that your priorities are misaligned. When you tell people they're wrong, it's ineffective. Can you find a different way of disagreeing with someone? Okay. Let's look at another one. You rolled your eyes 3 times while she was talking. You made little eye contact and she was mostly looking out the window. You shook your head repeatedly as she explained her point. Okay, very, very specific behaviors there. So let's look at one more. Let's say you've got an employee who came back late from lunch when they know it's busy. Okay, you think they know it's busy, and they keep coming back late from lunch. Here's what you'd say. John, I noticed you were late coming back from lunch 3 times in a row this week. You see how specific this is? Okay? There's no wishy-washy talk like you're always late, or like, you're never coming in on time, or it's very specific. 3 times this week you came in late. Also, when there's a break in customer flow, you stand there and do nothing. Specific, you stand and do nothing. Okay? Let's look at another one. This morning, when I handed you your work assignment, you rolled your eyes at me. You sighed and threw the paperwork back on my desk. You began arguing with me and about the work that was assigned to you, and you stated loudly and angrily in front of the other staff that you were tired of being given all the lousy jobs. Your behavior is unacceptable because it is disrespectful and insubordinate and violates our company's standards for performance and conduct. In the future, I expect that you will share your concerns about the work assignment with me privately and not voice your dissatisfaction in a rude and unprofessional manner. So giving feedback like this is usually enough to correct the behavior. Okay, not always the case, but usually it is. But you may have to take things further if the behavior repeats itself. And it's you need to give the employee a copy of the employee handbook, which states the rules on insubordination. Okay, every company should have an employee handbook, which details the behavior that's expected in the workplace. And when you have a meeting with the employee, you should give them a copy of that book and explain, or you can explain, which part of the rules they broke. Okay, just so it's very, very clear to them, and there's no misunderstanding that here are the rules for the company, and this is the rules that you broke. And then we want to make it very clear the consequences of further misconduct. You know, depending on the severity. I mean, if it's just the first time that the first time that you've had to speak to them about their behavior, you don't necessarily maybe want to you may not necessarily want to go down the route of say to them, look, there's going to be consequences if you do this again. Okay, if this is the first time, it depends. It really depends sort of on many factors. How long the employee has been working for you, how severe their behavior is. What did they do? What did they say? Was it in front of other people? Was it in front of customers? Okay, which will then determine what kind of approach and how severe the approach you take. You may decide just to have a conversation and just like we did in the examples before, it's just explain that you want they want them to think about their behavior and how disrespectful it's coming across, and you want them to change it. However, if it's something a bit more serious, then you may want to make it very clear that the consequences of further misconduct. Okay, because you want them to take it really seriously, so that the incident is not repeated. And the way you get the employee to change their behavior is by linking it to consequences. If you do this again, we will have to take things further down the disciplinary route. Now, check the wording with your HR department, because every company you should have an HR department there, and you've got to be careful how you word things to the employee. I mean, you cannot just say, certainly in the UK, you can't say things like, "Oh, if you do it again, you're going to be sacked." You can't assume that, you can't preempt your actions before someone is done something, if that makes sense. So you've got to check the wording, and you don't want to sort of overstate things. But certainly, saying something along the lines of, further disciplinary action may be taken. It could be a safe bet to sort of, a safe way to say it. But check with your HR department on that. Okay, and the last thing you want to do, obviously you want to listen to them. Listen to what they say, the sort of response that they give you. They may be apologetic and say, "Look, I'm sorry." Again, that sort of determines how you sort of play it out. If they're very apologetic and they know that they've done wrong and they apologize, then we leave it at that. That's where most likely that means they know what they've done wrong and they're going to change. Always we want to document the conversation. So you take out a piece of paper, you explain what happened, exactly what was said. The employee rolled their eyes. They said these words. There was these witnesses there. You want to make sure you put all the information down, just in case in future down the line something happens. You've got that backup to protect yourself. Okay, you've documented it. It's there, and in case one day the company decides to terminate the employee, then you've got that there to sort of protect you should this go to the courts and the employee tries to claim for unfair dismissal. Okay, so overall, we're going to try and give them the chance to change themselves as much as possible, and we just want to change their behavior, okay? And that's why we're having a meeting. And hopefully this is enough to get them to change. Yeah, and I hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, if you need me to clarify anything. And I will see you on the next training. Speak to you soon.